On August 27, 1943, the British warship, the HMS Egret, became the first ship ever to be sunk by a guided missile. The missile used was called the HS-293, or better known as the Fritz X, fired by German bombers. The sinking would eventually usher in a whole new era of naval warfare. In the years since the first attack, at least 24 ships have sank due to anti-ship missile attacks. A few of the most notable is Egypt's sinking of the Israeli Eilat destroyer a few months after the end of the Six-Day War in 1976, the British HMS Sheffield by Argentinian-launched Exocet missiles during the Falklands War, and the sinking of the Iranian frigate Shahan by American Harpoon and Skipper 2 missiles during Operation Praying Mantis. Anti-ship missiles can be fired from surface ships, aircraft, land-based batteries, and even submarines. Over the years, the missiles have increased drastically in speed, in range, and in technology. There are 4 key issues when it comes to these missiles. First is range. The original anti-ship missile, the Fritz X, had a range of 1 to 4 miles. Most modern anti-ship missiles have ranges of around 100 miles. This allows the attacker to stay well out of sight of its target while attacking. However, at these ranges, it becomes almost impossible to see your target without the help of some reconnaissance. Second is altitude. The majority of current missiles are what are known as sea skimming. This means the missile will fly extremely low, sometimes only 10 to 20 feet above the surface of the water. Due to the curve of the Earth, doing this makes the missile unable to be detected by the target until it is around 15 to 20 miles away, therefore reducing the time that the target has to defend itself. This again though makes targeting much more difficult, as the horizon also means the missile sensors cannot see the target until it is close enough. It also increases the chances of crashing into the water due to high waves or even the smallest glitch in guidance. Which brings us to the third point, speed. The faster the missile is traveling, the quicker it'll reach its target. This again reduces the defender's time it has to protect itself. This coupled with flying very low can really increase the chance of hitting the target. For example, a subsonic anti-ship missile flying low close to the water will give the defender about 90 seconds to respond. Whereas with some of the faster sea-skimming missiles, ships could only have 20 to 30 seconds before impact. The issue with speed is mostly that it burns through fuel faster, which can either shorten range or require the missile to be much larger, which limits the number of platforms it can be carried and fired from. Finally is its sensors. Ships at sea are typically moving, making targeting much more complicated. The missile must be able to maneuver to hit a ship attempting to escape by changing course. At the same time, you don't want your missile going off course and locking onto a friendly or civilian ship. These missiles are typically guided by infrared, GPS coordinates, an internal radar, a radio signal from the launching platform, or any combination of these. While the US focused on large, offensive carrier battle groups, Soviet naval doctrine focused more on defensive measures, and anti-ship missiles were an excellent, affordable way to counter a large number of expensive US naval ships. They put these missiles on aircraft, on land, on submarines, and every kind of ship possible. They even developed a new class of naval vessels known as missile boats. These were small, fast boats armed with a few anti-ship missiles. The Soviets built more than 500 of these crafts during the Cold War. The Russians have also developed dozens of anti-ship missiles. Their first missile, the P-1 or SSN-1 Scrubber, was a relatively short-range, subsonic weapon armed with a nuclear warhead. Over time, these missiles became more advanced, faster, and longer range. Russia's most recent anti-ship missile in service is the 3M52 Klub. The newest variant of the missile travels at subsonic speeds to conserve fuel, which extends its range. Once the missile gets nearer the target, it boosts its speed up to 3 times the speed of sound to attack. Russia is currently also working on even faster missiles like the 3M22 Zircon and the Brahmos 2. These missiles will travel 7 to 10 times faster than the conventional subsonic anti-ship missiles. While these faster missiles will reduce the target's reaction time, the missiles will most likely not be sea skimming. The Earth's atmosphere is much thicker closer to the surface, meaning the missiles would face immense heat and pressure built up by traveling so fast. Without extra shielding and protection, this would likely destroy the weapon. More likely is the missile will fly at much higher altitudes where the atmosphere is thinner, with less friction impacting the missile. The US, on the other hand, is significantly behind when it comes to anti-ship missiles. America's main anti-ship missile is the Harpoon, a subsonic weapon designed over 40 years ago. After the end of the Cold War in the 1990s, the US military faced significant defense spending cuts, Also, during this time, America's enemies shifted from being large, powerful, modern militaries to asymmetrical warfare fighting terrorist groups that attack and then quickly blend back into the civilian population. The US military doctrine was adapted accordingly. However, now with growing modern navies of countries like Russia and China, the US finds itself way behind when it comes to anti-ship warfare. Its only dedicated anti-ship missile is the Harpoon, which is outdated, it has a slower speed, and relatively shorter range compared to that of Russia. The US can and has used its ship-based surface-to-air missiles for surface attacks as well. The SM-2 and the SM-6 travel at several times the speed of sound and can also hit ships. However, they are not sea skimming, and they have a very small warhead. You would not want to rely on these missiles to sink large cruisers or destroyers like that of Russia or China. Recently, the US has begun to develop a replacement for the Harpoon. The LRASM and an anti-ship variant of the Tomahawk cruise missiles are under development. The US did field an anti-ship version of the Tomahawk missile in the late 80s and early 90s, however it has since been withdrawn from service. Despite being an upgrade with longer range and more advanced sensors compared to the Harpoon, the two replacements are still both subsonic. The LRASM is expected to enter service in 2019 and the new Tomahawk in the mid-2020s. When it comes to defending against anti-ship missile attacks, both countries have numerous defensive measures on board their warships. The most recognizable is the surface-to-air missiles. Both countries have long-range, medium-range, and short-range point defense systems, including a Sea Whiz. The Sea Whiz is an extremely fast machine gun that attempts to shoot down any missiles and is the last line of defense for the ship. Modern naval vessels can carry nearly 100 surface-to-air missiles on board to defend their ships from attack. On top of that, ships utilize radar jamming to blind the incoming missiles from seeing their targets. However, many modern anti-ship missiles have the ability to home in on a jamming signal. And finally is chaff. Chaff contains hundreds of thin metal strips fired up into the air in an attempt to present a false radar target. Chaff has been used since World War II and is also used aboard aircraft to defeat incoming missiles. Between Russia and the US, Russia is currently well ahead of the United States in terms of anti-ship missile technology. It also leads the US in terms of anti-ship missile launching platforms. Nearly every Russian warship, even the smaller corvettes and submarines, can fire these missiles, whereas the US is seemingly moving backward by removing Harpoons from their submarines in 1997 and the latest variant of the Arleigh Burke Flight 2A class destroyers. The only silver lining for the US right now is their bigger number of large warships and aircraft carriers with their carrier air wings. Other than that, the US still has a long way to go to catch up.